Welcome everyone to Friday night Christian Biblical Church of God's online fellowship meeting. We have it every week, and every other week we have another meeting we call Go to Meeting 2. This one we call Go to Meeting 1. It avails itself to all of the people around the world that are scattered and those people in different areas. It is truly an international meeting. We could name all the places, but we're getting more and more people in remote areas that are coming on. So we really appreciate that. And every week we have the opportunity to hear from a speaker in CBCG. This week is our speaker is from Pasadena, California. And the title of his message tonight is Stand Fast, Steel Yourself. They introduce Byron Norrod.
Thank you, Steve. Stand fast. Stand fast. Stand fast. Stand fast. Steel yourselves. Have faith. That's my message. Good night. Happy Sabbath. Of course, I jest. Listen, that's the basic essence of the whole thing. Our whole lives, our whole purpose for this life is to have faith in God and to know that our lives are going to work out because God is involved in our lives. Let's start by turning to Exodus 14. Exodus 14, we just came through the spring holy days. We know that the children of Israel left out of Egypt, and God took them miraculously through the Red Sea. And here we're going to look at just a little passage of this. Exodus 14, let's start in verse 10. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were very afraid. I would be too, wouldn't you? The Egyptians are coming to knock us down, to kill us, to cut us down with a sword. They had chariots. We're marching with our families, our little ones, and our lambs, and our flocks, and our families. We're so vulnerable. And they are coming as a war machine to tear us down. And they were very afraid. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. We know what happened. Let's just skip down a couple of verses. Verse 13. And Moses said to the people, fear not. You can say it so many different ways. He could shout it at them, fear not, right? Or he could say, fear not. I think that he had a bit of emotion, but I think that he conveyed it to them and just said, listen, don't worry. God's got this. Fear not. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will never see them again. And the Lord shall fight for you, and you shall be still. Wow. How amazing. You know, we believe that no matter what problems we have, that God's in charge of our lives, right? We believe that God is the living God and he's working in our lives. We know that we can stand fast and see the salvation of the eternal. We know that we can stand still and see God's working a deliverance in our lives. But do we believe that? I mean, really, in our hearts, in our core. Let me tell you something. Our fears tell us what we believe, right? What are we currently afraid of? The biggest threat seemingly that's on a global threat is this coronavirus. We worry about vaccines and having to be vaccinated with this. We worry about aluminum and mercury. And I haven't received my stimulus check yet. Actually, I haven't. Some people are on round 2. We're worried about economic collapse on a worldwide basis. HEK 293. We think about 5G mind control. Or maybe you're worried about ID2020.com and you think that Bill Gates is the devil and he wants to vaccinate us all with chips. Well, that's an end time prophecy that could be fulfilled. But right or left, whatever camp you are in politically, whatever your fears are, let's just stop. Let's just stop, take a breath, step back. Listen, I can't see you, but I can see the wheels in your minds churning, and you're thinking about this truth or this reality or this conspiracy or that thing. You know, what is really going to happen? Whether we believe truths or deceptions, whether our fears are from the right or from the left. Any political fear that we have is valid, right? Whatever your concerns are, listen, this is not a message about conspiracies. It's really not. It's about our response to conspiracies and how we handle them. Psalm 119 and verse 165, I'll just quote it for you. We don't want to turn there right now for lack of time. Great peace have those who love your law, and there is no stumbling block for them. The King James Version says, great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. Well, I'll tell you, what offends you? I'll tell you some things offend me. You know, for this, I'm going to get out my little tinfoil hat. Okay? Here's my tinfoil hat of conspiracies, okay? I'm just going to read some things to you. Chemtrails. I'm scared of chemical trails up in the skies. They put sugar in everything. They put taxation with representation. Taxation without representation. Preservatives in our meat. Preservatives in everything. Food additives, nitrates, nitrites. Yellow food coloring number 5. MSG in our foods. DDT left over in the foods that are coming from Mexico. Crop dusting pesticides, herbicides, poisons in our shampoos and our soaps. Sodium lauryl sulfate. Fluoride in our water. Chlorine in our water. Lead in our water. Formaldehyde in our carpets and our plywood. Lies in marketing. Organic olive oil that comes from Italy, right? That's not really organic, but the mob validates that it is and certifies that it is. What about mercury in our little twisty light bulbs that if they break, the mercury drops down? They have like 2 to 5 milligrams of mercury, and it gets into your carpet. And if you walk on it, even though you vacuum it up, you cannot get that mercury out of there. And if you walk on it with your bare feet, you absorb it, you and your children. What about illegal drugs damaging our society? What about legal drugs being abused in our society? What about abortion, suicide? What about the confusion of genders, poverty, erosion of national pride? Listen, the list goes on. And here I am wearing this silly tinfoil hat. And you say, Byron, that's used tinfoil. You know, it doesn't even completely cover your head. And by the way, it's aluminum foil, not tinfoil, right? You really need true tinfoil. And if it wasn't tinfoil, maybe we should really be talking about copper. Okay, so I have some copper rounds, and I can put the not only that, I have a copper yarmulke. We wove this thing. Now if I put the copper yarmulke on, and I maybe put these bits of copper all over my head, maybe I'll be protected from the mind control. Listen, all of this is silliness, isn't it? Does God have our backs or not? Now I'm kind of jesting here. I'm kind of pointing the finger and saying that things kind of in a silly manner, right? The things that offend us these are physical things, these are physical concerns, physical worries, and yes, we should take action steps to protect ourselves wherever we can. You know, it's a wise man that walks on the other side of the street when he sees trouble coming. That's in the Proverbs. But That's not what Psalm 119, 165 is talking about when it says that great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. It's talking about that we have a hope and for our salvation, and it goes way beyond anything perpetrated on us by man or the devil. We have a hope that goes beyond that, such that nothing can keep us out of the kingdom of God, right? Don't we want the kingdom of God more than anything else? Listen, in the long run, we're not offended by anything in the long run that man or Satan can do, because we have the peace of mind that goes beyond all understanding. Yeah, but Byron, this coronavirus, it's something real. You're right. It is. It kills. People die from it. It's a worldwide concern. We have to wear our face masks, right? Listen, the face mask is something physical. We are so much more concerned about the spiritual reality. That's how we can stand fast. We can stand fast and see the salvation of God in our lives because we have a spiritual reality that supersedes any of the physical things. Whatever happens to our bodies, we get cancer, we get COVID-19, we get the Wuhan virus, whatever. It doesn't matter, because we have God in our lives. But we have to have this as an active and living faith. Let's get back to this thing about the COVID-19. This thing has so many names, right? But this thing really has people cowering at home. We are supposed to shelter in place, right? And should it actually make true Christians cower at home? I talked to a member, and somebody's mic is on and making noise there, but I talked to a member, and they said that they hadn't been out of their homes for over 2 weeks. And I said, you haven't been outside in over 2 weeks? And that's right. Well, how do you get your exercise? Don't you, I thought you walked. Didn't you like to take walks? Yes, but the people out there are so disrespectful, they don't even wear their face masks. And I fear for people being so consumed by the physicality of this and not understanding and placing so much more emphasis and trust and faith on the spiritual aspect of this. Should we give messages on prepping, right? Make sure you have so many gallons of water per person per day for 2 or 3 weeks. Have canned goods on supply. You need protein and carbohydrates to really sustain you through this thing. Make sure you have extra meds. Buy some silver coins so that you have some silver on hand, because when the soup hits the fan, life is going to get tough, is it not? It will. It truly will. But we have a superior trust and faith structure. Our bastion of strength, our wall of defense, is that we can trust in God. And so listen, who has 3 months of income stored aside? And I mean, we're all looking for the stimulus check, right? But what happens if we're not depending on the government? We're depending on the government for a little bit of money, right? But what happens when the government truly runs out of the money? It already has. It's printing money. But listen, this right here, what we're in right now, this pandemic, is a light lockdown. We still have water. We still have electricity. We still have sewage that we can, running sewage. What if we actually had a dirty bomb and we actually did have to stay inside? What if we didn't have water, running water? What if we didn't have electricity? What if we didn't have water or electricity? What if we had no water, no electricity, and a dirty bomb? and COVID. Listen, it's going to get tough. This is a light duty exercise for us to begin to realize that our trust has to go on our God so much more powerfully than we can even ever imagine. And tonight, hopefully, we'll talk about these three things, and I've already given them to you. But the three aspects of how we can respond to any crisis that is thrown at us, and this is the purpose of the message, is that we stand fast, that we steel ourselves, and that we have faith. And also what we can do to bolster our household of faith. But let's get back to this just a little bit in standing fast, because I'm kind of blending the first point with the introduction of this message. What if what we're mainly really concerned about, what we should be mainly concerned about, is the spiritual debauchery which can attack us, not the physicality. The physicality is real. We live in this world. Jesus said, I pray not that you take them out of the world, but that they stay in the world, and they have to live in the world, but we are still spiritually to come out of the world, right? But what if the powers that be could indiscriminately arrest you and behead you for your belief structure of believing in the true God and for keeping the Sabbath or the holy days? Whatever your true belief structure is, if God allows it, the spiritual debauchery that can come upon you and me is huge. Listen, what we're doing, this is an exercise, not of futility. God's preparing us. This is a prepper message, right? We are telling you how to prepare, not by keeping bottles of water and 25-year storage of food supplies in your basement, right? We should do that. Fred used to give messages, buy a coin of silver a week if you can. Put away canned goods. He says, I do it, you should too. But if we go back to this, what I kind of mentioned earlier, this Bill Gates thing, the ID2020.com, where he wants to have everybody have a digital card that validates that we are either vaccinated to the COVID virus or that we are immune to it. And the way he proposes doing that is to use the digital angel rice-sized chip, right, that can be injected into your hand. And Fred's given many messages about the digital angel and the potential of it. I'm not trying to revisit it, and I don't want to. I have to address this a little bit, but I don't want to open this up for, in the discussion afterward, for a whole bunch of conspiracy theory projections, okay? This is not that. I want us to be able to withstand anything that Satan or man throws at you and me. The point of this thing that I was mentioning, the ID2020.com, is if this is a clear and present path that under threat could lead to the beast power, right? It's the first credible threat that could mandate everybody getting the rice-sized chip injected into their skin, into their bodies, so that they can have a validation that they are immune or have been vaccinated to the COVID virus. And the goal of Bill Gates in this ID 2020 is to have everybody do it. Now, do I think Bill Gates is the devil? No. Do I think that he believes that he wants this for the good of humanity? I think he probably does. But I know that we're all deceived, and I don't want to be chipped. Yet this is the first credible path because it's a threat to everybody pandemically, right? Okay. So the coronavirus presents a clear and present pathway which can be used to gain global control. And the digital angel has been around for a long time, but people are now having chipping parties where they get chipped and they're so happy that they've been chipped, and I can't wait. Now I have my digital identity within my own body, and I can't wait to test it out and go swipe and pay for my goods like this. But by the way, am I saying that the chips are the mark of the beast? No, I'm not. Could it be? Yes. Is that what Fred had said in the past? Yeah, it could be. He said that it could be. But with that threat of being chipped globally on the horizon, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to handle it? Okay. Let's turn now to Psalm 46. Psalm 46. And I want us to have the confidence that no matter what happens, God is in control and he will see us through. No matter what conspiracy you may think is true or believe, it doesn't matter. And all of that's futility, right? Look, we know conspiracy is a real word, right? If people didn't lie, there wouldn't be a word for lying. If there weren't collusion, then there would be no word for conspiracy. But like in Esther, there's two cases, right? Mordecai overheard two guys, and they had a desire, and they had a bond where they were going to try to kill the king. And Mordecai told on them, and they were stopped. That was stopped. And then the second one was Haman, who had a goal, and he colluded to try to kill all of the Jews, right? So twice in that one book, there was conspiracy. So no matter what conspiracy there is, and there are conspiracies out there, we don't have to worry. Remember what we read in Exodus 14? Stand still and see the salvation of the eternal. Stand fast, right? Okay, so Psalm 46. Psalm 46 and verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Mankind is going to know that God is God and his way is going to rule. His kingdom is coming. We can have ultra faith, have ultra confidence in that, right? We don't have to worry about that. That is real, and that's going to happen. 2 Peter 3, and we'll turn 2 Peter 3. I'd like to move on to the next point here. The next point is to steel ourselves. Now, what does that mean? We need to get hardened towards the reality that no matter what problems come, we're going to stand for God. It does not matter what happens, no matter what, we are going to stand for God. Look, things are going to get pretty dicey, aren't they? Are they not? So, I don't know if you have this, the Daniel and Revelation series that Fred has put out. It's 40 messages, 40 sermons. And I put together just a few snippets, and I'll give you some links, some bookmarks, I guess. Not bookmarks, but just some references. That would be a better way. Some as to what I'm going to be reading, but I'm going to be reading some of those things. But before we get there, let's look at 2 Peter 3 and verse 17. 2 Peter 3:17. These false prophets are fountains without water. I'm sorry. Let's turn to 2 Peter 3:17. Therefore, beloved, Since you know this in advance, be on guard against such practices, lest you be led astray with the error of the lawless ones, and you fall from your own steadfastness. Okay, so we know that we have a certain amount of steadfastness. I'm going to read that to you from the Living Bible. I don't usually like the Living Bible, but this has a kind of an interesting take on it. He says, I'm warning you ahead of time, dear brothers, so that you can watch out and not be carried away by the mistakes of wicked men, lest you yourselves become mixed up too. Because we have that steadfastness, right? He's telling us in advance. Listen, we're supposed to watch and pray always, are we not? What are we watching for? We're just watching the news? No. We have been warned. 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy, right? We have been warned about the end times. Daniel got all this end time information, but he didn't understand it. And God says, go your way, Daniel. It's not to be revealed until the end times. Right now, we have a potential where we can see that the beast power could actually come on the scene in our lifetimes right now. It's a scary perspective, but we don't have to be scared. That's the whole point. Okay, we're going to have some very difficult times to come, right? And we have to make some very real choices on how we're going to obey God or not. And it's incumbent upon us to prepare ourselves, not with the preppers, extra water and food storage, right? You can do that too. But the spiritual preparedness is what we're talking about here. It's incumbent upon us to prepare ourselves for the trouble to come. And what do I mean by that? I mean we have to steel ourselves. We have to become hardened against anything that's going to present itself against the truth of God. We have to determine now to stay strong. We have to determine now that we will stay in the faith. What can take you out of the faith? What can steal your crown? We have to stay faithful till the end, no matter what trials may come. God told Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1 verse 17, I'm just going to cite this passage, 17 and 18. Jeremiah 1, 17 and 18. You therefore must gird up your loins and arise and speak to all that I command you. Do not be dismayed by their faces. Who's going to put their faces against you? Maybe the jackboots of the government. Maybe the National Guard. Maybe the Sheriff's Department. Maybe your local police department. Maybe the military. Maybe we'll become invaded by another superpower. Maybe it's going to be the jackboots of this coronavirus. Whatever it is, we don't have to fear the faces of mankind, because even though they might be angry and they might be raising their weapons or their knives or their swords or whatever to behead you and I, God says, you therefore must gird up your loins and arise and speak to them all that I command you. Do not be dismayed by their faces, lest I confound you before them. For behold, I have made you a fortified city this day, an iron pillar, and bronze walls against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, against its rulers and against its priests, against the people of the land, all the powers that be, all the gangs that might come searching your house for food, all the threats that may come against you and I. We don't have to worry. Might they take our lives? Yes. But we don't have to worry. Let's turn to Ezekiel 3. Ezekiel 3. You know, why don't we have to worry? We have so many reasons why we don't have to worry. Ezekiel 3 and verse 9. Ezekiel 3 and verse 9 says, let's start in 8. Ezekiel 3:8. Behold, I have made your face strong against their faces, and your forehead strong against their foreheads. You know how linemen on the football, American football, linemen might be there, and on the word hike, bam, they crash their helmets, the foreheads against each other. But ours are stronger than the linemen's because we have God's forehead helping us. Verse 9, I have made your forehead as adamant stone, harder than flint. Do not be afraid of them or dismayed by their faces, for they are a rebellious house, but you're not. Why do we have this confidence? Because God is for us, because we're in obedience, because we're striving to obey, because we value God and have placed him at the center and the forefront of our lives. Okay, the whole reason that God foretells us the events in the future that are going to happen are not so that we can be aware of it. The reason he gives us a forewarning is so that we can prepare ourselves, so that we can prepare our foreheads to be like adamant stone, so that we can be strong, so that we can predetermine that we will not yield and not give in to the faces of the men and the faces of the evil and the whoever may come against us. Yes, we are to watch and pray, but also so that we can stand strong when the end times come. Listen, this life is not a game. The threats are real. Life may become seemingly unbearable. But we have to choose now how we will strive to deal with the coming tribulation that will come. Will we rely on God, or will we allow our crowns to be taken from us by faltering on our commitment to God, and so that we do die with him? Didn't we make that commitment? Romans 6, 1 through 3, right? We committed our lives in baptism. Yeah, but Byron, you're telling us to steel ourselves. You're telling us that we can be tough. I'm just not so sure that we can predetermine that how we'll react. Maybe not, but can't we work towards that end? Why would God warn us? Why would God tell us to prepare? Okay, now in this Revelation and Daniel and Revelation series that Fred puts out, in number 26, we'll find these references. On page 286, on the right column, the 9th paragraph, he's reading from Revelation 3, verse 11. He says, behold, I'm going to do a lot of reading here. Behold, I come quickly. Hold fast. That was the beginning phrase, was it not? That which you have, so that no one may take away your crown. Fred says, we're dealing in a time where there's crown stealing. Determine now. Steel yourself. Page 286, I just read that. Page 288, right column, first paragraph. And those that fell upon this rock, or the rock, are the ones who, when they hear, receive the word with joy. But these do not have any root, and they couldn't bring forth fruit, who believe only for a while, and in time of trial fall away. We don't want to fall away. Those that fell into the thorns are those who have heard but are choked out while pursuing the cares and the riches and the pleasures of life, Fred says, and do not bring any fruit to perfection or maturity. And those that fell on the good ground are the ones who, in the right and good heart, hear the word and keep it, and bring forth fruit with endurance. That's what we're called to do, is have endurance and patience. Fred says this ties together with Revelation 3:10. Bring forth with patience and endurance. He says it's not all done at once. You get it? We're building this. We're building this house of faith. we're building these walls of bronze that are our strength of reliance upon God. Steel yourself. Okay. While we're here in Ezekiel, I'm going to turn to Ezekiel 22. Ezekiel 22. And we'll see verses 30 and 31. Listen, we're not called to this life for ourselves. We are called to help others get into the kingdom of God, right? And so if we're weak and we falter, how can we help anybody else? God's not looking for us just to stand fast to the end for our own benefit, but he wants us to be able to help others. Ezekiel 22, verses 30 and 31. And I sought for a man among them who should build up a wall for the land and stand in the breach for me. He's called upon us to stand in the breach for him, so that I should not destroy it, the land. But I did not find one. Therefore I have poured out my fury, which he will do in the day of the Lord. After during the 3.5 years, we'll have 2.5 years of tribulation, and in the day of the Lord, last as we understand it. Therefore I have poured out my fury on them. I have burned them up with the fire of my wrath. I have recompensed their way upon their heads, says the Lord God. We have that choice. Do we want to be righteous and obey and survive and live to God? Do we want to stand in a breach, or do we want to have God's fury poured out upon us? Of course, the answer is obvious. Page 295, left-hand column, 7th paragraph says, the beginning of the tribulation is the end of the temptation, because it goes on to its destructive end. The world would have failed the temptation. Fred says, will the Church of God have failed the temptation? That's pretty scary. He also cites that King David failed his test. Page 290, on the right column, the 5th paragraph, talking of David, Uriah, and Bathsheba. Fred says, he failed the test. He got tempted with evil. We don't have to succumb to that same type of temptation. Steel ourselves. I added that. Steel yourself. So what I did, because it could be steal ourselves, steal yourself, steal myself, I started just saying steal ourselves, SS, and then for an abbreviation. And so I have all through this notebook as we're going through the Daniel and Revelation series, SS, 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 and it's not the SS of the Nazi Germany, okay? It's saying we have the power now to make a determination to stand for God and righteousness and holiness. We have the power to choose that way of life, to choose that when we're faced with trouble, I'm going to do my very best to obey God. That's what you and I are both called to do. That's our incumbency. That's what is placed upon us. This life is a test. It's a training ground so that we will learn to trust the Eternal One with our very lives. Steel ourselves. Okay? Number 3. The first one was stand fast. We'll stand fast and see the salvation of God because we know that he will champion our cause. He wants what's best for us. It says, fear not, little flock. It's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven, right? The second one is to steel yourself. Steel ourselves. Stand strong. He said in 2 Peter 3:17, remember, I'm warning you ahead of time, dear brother, so that you can watch out now and not be carried away with the mistakes of wicked men. Okay, number 3, have faith. This is not a soft message. If you thought this was a soft message, I'm not doing my job right. This is not a message of smooth things. This is a warning message. It's time for us to wake up. We have to live our lives, get off our derrieres, and live our lives with faith. We cannot be the 5 foolish virgins. Listen, if you and I are not adding to the oil and building our reservoir of oil right now, nobody's going to do it for you. It's our purpose now to have that oil of the Holy Spirit working in us. Are we sticking our heads in the sand right now during this time of self-lockdown? You know, are we spending hours and hours on Facebook, huh? Are we playing loads and hours of games? Are we catching up on all the reruns of McLeod's Daughters? Right? Watching old TV reruns? It doesn't matter. Anything that... I'm blowing the trumpet. Those who have the warning message are supposed to stand on the wall and blow the trumpet. Hear, O Israel, we have sins. We need to be corrected. We need to get closer to God. Stand fast. Stand strong. Steel yourselves. Build your faith now. This is not a set of platitudes, but a warning message. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. Are you right-wing or are you left-wing? Do you believe that whatever your health situation is right now, whatever your current affairs are, whatever your financial affairs are, it doesn't matter. None of that will matter. Revelation 13. Let's turn to Revelation 13. I'm going to tell you something here. If we live through to the end times, right? The devil's going to kick our butts. I don't mean to get graphic here, but really, he has the power and the authority. 10 times in this chapter, it says that he has the power and the authority to overcome us and to kill us. Is that scary? Yes, it is. If it's not, it better be. Listen, don't worry about these little conspiracy things. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter who's in control. It doesn't matter if it's right wing or left wing. It doesn't matter if, we're invaded from the outer space by aliens. Okay? It doesn't matter that you might think that the government perpetrated 9/11 on us and caused the Twin Towers in New York City to fall. Huh? It doesn't matter that you might think that we've never been to the moon, we've never put a man on the moon, and that all that stuff was done over in some desert in Nevada. Area 51, irrelevant. Are there aliens? Irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Let's read some things here. 10 times in Revelation 13, it says that the beast will have power to harm us. Okay? Let's read it. Verse 2. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of the bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, number 1, and his throne and great authority, number 2. Skip to verse 4. And they worshiped the dragon who gave his authority to the beast. That's number 3. Number 5, verse 5. And the mouth speaking great things and blasphemies was given to him, and authority was given to him to continue 42 months. I'm going to stop counting. I'm just going to keep citing. Okay? Verse 7. And he was given power to make war against the saints and to overcome them. And he was given great authority over every tribe and language and nation. Verse 12. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast before him. And he causes the earth and those who dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Verse 15. And he was given power to give life, pardon me, to the image of the beast, saying to those that dwell in the land on the earth that they should make an image for the beast, which had the wound by the sword yet was alive. Verse 15. And he was given power to give life to the image of the beast. 15b. And he he has the power to cause everyone who will not worship the image of the beast to be killed. That's you and me. Verse 16. And he causes all. Again, he has the power to cause this. The small and the great and the rich and the poor and the free and the bond to receive a mark in their right hands and in their foreheads. He has the power to overcome the saints. Do you remember that we read that in verse 7? Let me reread that. And he was given power to make war against the saints and to overcome them. Listen, if it's not you and I, it's our children. If it's not our children, it's their children. Somebody's going to have to live through the tribulation and the day of the Lord. Somebody's going to have to live through these end time events. Oh, I pray that it not come. I pray that God's able to do it some other way. That all the problems and the trials and the pain and the suffering that God prophesies will not have to occur. And yet, God knows best. Not my will, but thy will be done. Right? Let me tell you, though, that God encourages us twice. Let me read those two encouragements to you. Okay? Verse 10. Revelation 13 and verse 10. If anyone gathers into captivity, he shall go into captivity. If anyone kills with a sword, he must be killed with a sword. Here is the endurance of the faith and the faith of the saints. Okay? So he didn't explain it yet, but he says here is the endurance and the faith of the saints. Now let's jump over to Revelation 14 and 12, right across the page. Revelation 14, 12. And he explains to us, here is the patience of the saints. Here are the ones who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. But those who have not made a predetermination in their minds to stand fast and to steel themselves and to make their foreheads as adamant stone will not be able to hang. We have to prepare ourselves now in advance. Proverbs 24. Proverbs 24. This is pretty cool. You know, the Proverbs, God does it, he does a lot of compare and contrast. And he compares the foolish to the wise. And he says, don't do it this way, do it this way. This is the good, and this is the bad. And so what I'm going to do, though, I'm going to pick out 3 verses that just talk about the wise. And I don't want to compare and contrast the foolish necessarily. You can do that on your own time. You can read the whole chapter of Proverbs 24. But I want to focus on what the righteous, the wise are doing, okay? Proverbs 24 and verse 3. Through wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. Let's stop right there. So we're building a house by wisdom, right? What is that house? It's a house of faith, and that house of faith is surrounded by a wall of protection of additional faith that we heard about earlier when he was talking to Jeremiah and Ezekiel, right? And it's by understanding that we can establish this. Now, verse 5. A wise man is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength, but not without exercise, right? How do you get strong? Pumping iron, yeah. Get out there and let's do those reps. Get those reps gone. Drink your protein. How do we build our faith, our spiritual faith? Those are the spiritual. This life is the spiritual reps that we're doing spiritually. We're building our spiritual house of faith. And it increases in strength. And therefore, we become wise men, and a wise man is strong. Now, verse 10. But if you faint on the day of adversity, your strength is small. He says, I've told you now how to build it through wisdom, understanding, but being having strength through knowledge, and thus you're building your spiritual house. Okay, if we build, okay, let me say this. A lot of people say, hey, Byron, I'm with you, man. I don't worry about all that stuff. I'm just trusting Jesus. I just trust in the Lord. I don't have to do nothing. God's going to handle it. I don't have to worry about all that. No, that's not being wise. You should put some food storage away, put some extra water away, have some extra money if you can afford it. We have to be wise in this world, right? But just as in Matthew 7, it says that there are false believers, and they say, Jesus said, not everyone that calls on me and says, Lord, Lord, will make it into the kingdom of heaven, right? But those that have their faith and build their house on me, the rock of salvation, right? I think we're on the same page here. Those false believers that say, Lord, Lord, and cast out demons in their name and do mighty wonders in his name, if they're not doing the will of God, are not the true believers, and he's going to confess to them, I never knew you. What about people, does it not correlate with people who say, I don't have to worry about nothing, I'm just going to trust in Jesus. Jesus is it, I don't have to do nothing. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. We have to live our lives of faith. We have to build our lives of faith. We don't have to move towards fear, but we have to move forward with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. We have to move forward having the faith of God. And the only way that we can have faith is by building the faith. Now we go back to points 1 and 2, right? We have to, whenever we're threatened, like the children of Israel, like we started off in the Exodus 14, the children of Israel were very scared, just like many of us might be very scared about this coronavirus. It doesn't matter. We're building through spiritual reps this house of faith. We're this musculature, our biceps of faith, right? It's not those that say, I'm trusting in Jesus and the Lord. No, we have to exercise our faith. And the way we do that is by making our foreheads adamant stone. Right? And how do we do that? We have to pray like it all depends on God, right? Because it does, absolutely. And yet we have to exercise our faith and act in our lives like it all depends on us. We have to move forward in faith. Remember when the priests carrying the ark, before they could actually go into the promised land, God did not move the waters of the Jordan River and heap them up on the sides. They prayed, they got all ready, they washed their clothes, but not until the priests stepped their sandals into the water did God move the Jordan River back and piled it up like a heap. And then, just like the Red Sea, the Israelites were able to proceed into the promised land, but it took action steps of faith. And that's where you and I are, brothers. Psalm 91. Psalm 91. Our faith is dependent upon God, but it's also dependent upon what we put into it. We have to be buying our oil through the exercise of our faith so that we can be a wise virgin, not the foolish virgin that runs out of our oil. We might have some oil. We might have the appearance of a true Christian. Oh, I call on God. You know what? That's something. A lot of times we can look at people and think by their outward appearance, oh, they have a certain amount of understanding. But if they're not living the way of love, they're not living Isaiah 8:20, as to the truth and to the testimony, if they're not speaking according to these things, that's because there's no light in them. Somebody can have a little bit of understanding and say, oh, people say, oh, that guy, he is the law. But if they're not living the law of love, there is no light in them. Don't be fooled, brethren. You and I aren't fooling anyone. We're not fooling God. God knows whether we're true or not. Psalm 91. Psalm 91. And we'll read verses 3 through 11. Surely he will deliver you from the fowler's trap and from the destroying pestilence, which this COVID-19 truly is. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor by the arrow that flies by day. Nothing's going to get you. Let's be realistic. Somebody going to come and infect you? Or are you going to be shot by an arrow? Or somebody going to come and shoot you? Or they might, but that's not our fear. Nothing shall offend them, because we have a faith and a peace of mind that goes beyond all understanding. We have a truth and a faith and a confidence that God will fight our battles for us. Let's keep going. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor for the plague that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction laying waste at noonday. What's our economy? The economy of the world is being laid waste. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right side. It shall not come near you. Only with your eyes you shall behold and see the recompense of the wicked, because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation. That's where we live. In him we live and move and have our being, right? Think of a fishbowl. A fish lives in the, goldfish lives in this little fishbowl. And here's my water glass, right? And he swims around, he lives, and he moves, and he has his whole being in that fishbowl. We're creating an environment of godliness. That's what the fish does. He lives we should live in a God environment. That's what we're trying to create, is a godliness in our daily lives, so that everybody knows that you are a true Christian. How? Because you have some understanding, some insight, some biblical wisdom? No. Because you show love. One of our members had a neighbor, not in the church. I don't know if this person was a professing Christian or not. They came over to one of our members and says, hey, I have some toilet paper, extra toilet paper, and some extra eggs. If you need some, just let me know. What a generosity. That's being a Christian, right? That's letting God's love be reflected through you and I. What? We've made God our habitation. Verse 10, no evil shall befall you, nor shall plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. How encouraging is that? Listen, I said this is not a message of platitudes, but I'm going to read you one. I saw a little cliche, banal truism, a little prayer. I'm going to read that. It's like a sentence, right? Lord, I don't pray for tranquility. No, I'll pray for that as well. But this one says, Lord, I don't pray for tranquility or that my problems may cease. I pray that your spirit and love would give me the strength to abide in you during adversity. Listen, the way to build our faith is to determine now to steel ourselves, to have faith, to stand fast, and to harden ourselves towards being broken down by the devil or any of his minions, whether spirit or physical, humans, or animals. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what can be thrown against you, because we are steeling ourselves. We are developing a larger reservoir for our oil and buying more of God's Spirit and pouring in more and more and more and adding to our supply of that oil. If we're not developing the oil in our lamps now, brethren, no one will do it for us. We cannot be afraid to go out in this world and face this world and face what's going to happen, because we know already that it's going to be tough. We can be assured that it's going to be tough. We know for certain that the tribulation will come, that the day of the Lord will come. We know that the mark of the beast will happen. We know that the beast will have power over you and I or our progeny. We know bad things will happen. But we don't have to worry, because we know that God is in our corner. This is a message of being a prepper, not on a physical sense, right? It's to be a spiritual prepper. Develop extra oil, God's Spirit. Go boldly with God's Spirit and face whatever problems may come at you with a flint hardened, a forehead hardened harder than flint, adamant stone. Be bold with God in your corner. Be bold with God as at your side. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 may fall at your side, but God will represent for you. God wants what's best for you and I. Brethren, stand fast. Steel yourself. Have faith. Have faith in God.